Today we're going to show you the most important knots that we use when we're underground exploring. If you explore, you should learn every one of these knots. You don't know when you might be called upon to safely tie a knot in an emergency situation. We're also going to do a giveaway to help 3 of our viewers learn their knots.
I'm going to run through a couple of knots, the main knots that I use all of the time. There's hundreds of different knots out there. There's only actually a few that most people use regularly, the main ones that everyone knows about. The first one is a figure 8. It's the strongest of all the knots. I believe it gives 85 to 90% of the strength of the rope through the knot. So you can't get much stronger than that. It's used for absolutely everything. It's very easy to tie. It's also reasonably easy to untie when it's been loaded. Not the easiest, but pretty easy. I'm going to tie this into the rope so you can see how it's done. Around your hand, around the rope and through the hole. You always have to dress the knots so you can see they're laid out right. If I show you on the camera, it should form a lovely figure 8. You should find that the 2 ropes follow themselves around side by side. They don't cross over. It's awkward to get it to neat, but if you can do that, you know you've got the knot tied perfectly. Very neat, very strong that way. To cinch it up, the big loops over the small loops, pull up the slack. With a figure 8, you do have to pull each end individually. And should end up with a reasonably compact knot. It tends to be longer than it is wide. They're designed to be used in any direction, ideally in a straight line with the rope. That's where they're strongest, but you can go off to the side, do whatever you want with them. They're pretty good. You can cinch them down. They'll take a lot of force on these. They will clamp up together. If you haven't put a lot of weight on them, they're easy to undo. If they have, it's still the same technique. Where the ropes come around the outside of the main ropes, you do what I call is breaking the back. So you fold them over, and what you've done is you put some stretch back in it, some slack, and the knot will just basically dissolve and off you go. That's the figure 8. Very useful, used everywhere by everyone. Most essential knot you need to know. Another knot that's very, very common, one of my favourite knots, I must admit, not my most favourite, that's coming next, but one of the favourite ones, is a butterfly knot, an alpine knot, an alpine butterfly, a lover's knot. It's got various titles, generally tied the same way, although there are two techniques to get to the same knot. One, you do it around your hand, which I never do, so I'm not going to try and do that. The way I do it is you put a loop, 1 turn, 2 turn. There's a hole that appears in the loop. That hole there. This loop goes around and it goes through the hole, and you end up with that. Cinch it down and off you go. Predominantly this is called an alpine knot because the people crossing the Alps, this is how you tie each other to each other, along them a rope with a loop out the side. The nice thing about this knot is you can have the weight of the rope and the knot stays out the same out the side, so it's very easy to clip into. It doesn't collapse, doesn't go anywhere. You can leave it like that, but if it's bouncing and moving around, there is a chance it can untie itself. Unlikely, but there is always a possibility. Normally you do it to have something clipped in there, or to use it as an anchor, as a deviation off in one direction. The other thing which is really, really handy to know is if you have any damage on the knot, on the rope, you can tie it so the damage is out here. So you've still got a continuation of the rope, but the damaged part is out of the way and it's not under load. So a very good way to isolate some damage on the rope when you don't want to lose the length of the rope. Really, really useful to know that one. This is another very, very strong knot in direction of pull. It's also very strong that way as well. What's lovely about this knot is no matter how much weight you put on it, it is very, very easy to untie. You can see the rope the main rope goes around a little hook over here. So to undo it, you just have to pull those forward, and you can see the knot basically just dissolves on its own. Pull those through, and that's it. Doesn't matter how much weight you've put on the knot, they are that easy to untie. They work in any size rope. The bigger the rope, the easier it is to untie, and that's with any knot. You put it on a small cord, the knots get really hard, but on climbing rope, it's a very, very useful knot, used for so many things. It's a good one to know. It's an essential one to know. The bowline, or bowline, depends on what part of the world you come from, is another very, very, very useful knot. There's two ways of tying it. There's the traditional way, which is the rabbit comes out the hole, round the tree, down the hole, that one, which most people have heard of. And there's another way, which is a much quicker way of doing it. I'll show you the traditional way. Bear with me because I don't do it that way, so I may fumble it a bit. A loop in the rope. There's the rabbit. Rabbit comes out the hole, round the tree, down the hole. Cinch it up. That is a bowline. It's not finished yet because a bowline can work its way loose. It's a very loose knot. So for safety, you would put a small stopper knot, barrel knot, whatever you want to call it, into here, just to stop the end pulling through. And that fell apart a bit, but there you go. Nice thing about this knot is it's very, very easy to tie, although I did fumble it a bit. But because the knot doesn't just come out the bottom, it comes out the side into the bottom. No matter what happens, it's always very easy to find the loop. So if you're on a rope, you're struggling, you've only got one hand free. If it's a figure eight, it's often they're closed up. With a bowline, it's always open. You can just click a carabiner through there. It's actually quite a strong knot, but it can wander itself undone. Very easy to undo when it's after it's been weighted as well, which is a good positive for it. There's an alternative way to tie it, which is the way I always do it, which is kind of quicker and easier for me because I'm familiar with it. A loop, pull the upper strand through, feed that through the hole, roll it all down, and you end up with a knot. Again, you need to do the stopper knot on the end here because it's not finished until that's in there. You still end up with a nice loop. This is also the only knot apparently that you can tie one-handed. I can do it, I'm not going to because I will make a mess of it, but in real situations you can actually tie that one-handed. Very, very good knot. As I said a little while ago, it's a nice one. You can put as much weight on it as you want and it never cinches up. You let go and it kind of opens up a little bit, unties very, very easily. You can use pretty much any size rope cord for that as well. Very, very useful knot. It's an essential one for climbing, mine exploring, caving. You need to know that one. Another knot is the Clove Hitch. This is actually my favourite knot. I do like the Clove Hitch. I use it everywhere. This is one, it's a knot that actually you can cinch down onto something. I've had so many uses for it. It's a very simple one to tie the way I do it. There is a way you can roll it on your hand and do it. I'm not familiar with that, so I won't show you that one, but I'll show you the way that I do it. A loop over, another loop over, cross them over each other, and then you can put that around something, pull it up, and it stays there. And it kind of locks itself in all directions. So it's good for hauling material up is one use. It also spreads the load over two ropes around a piece rather than just one, so it reduces the wear points and the strains on the rope itself. I like it because you can tie it around something and it doesn't slide down, unlikely to slide off on its own. Very, very useful knot. Not really any good on its own because it can kind of wander through, so it's normally in with other knots, other equipment that you're using. Another place I use the Clove Hitch is when I want to tie into something. You want a nice big figure eight, so you need a nice big loop on it. there's your figure 8. I haven't dressed it very well, so let's just sort that out a bit. So there's your figure 8. You can put it around something. What I like to do is then tie a clove hitch into the bottom of the figure 8, put that around something, rotate it so it's kind of evenly positioned. What that does, it doubles everything up. So in theory you've got 2 ropes around everything, which makes it very strong, but it doesn't fall off, and that's really useful. You can put it around, cinch it up, and that is staying there. So if you're tied to something and there's a chance you're going to be wobbling the rope around, you could easily lift the loop off if it's just a figure 8. Another good use for a clove hitch is along with a figure 8. Something that's very important that everybody that uses ropes needs to do is learn your knots, practice the knots. The best thing to do is get yourself a 6-8 foot length of rope. Doesn't need to be full-size climbing rope, any rope will do. It needs to be something you can get your fingers onto, so maybe down to 6 mil. The bigger the better. Take it home, have it by the couch, next to your bed, lunch hour at work, have a bit of rope there and practice your knots. Practice, because quite often you'll find yourself in a position where you're not really got the space, the time, or the ability to sit and think about it. You need to be able to do it pretty much subconsciously with your eyes closed, whatever. So 6-8 foot length of rope and just practice knots and get good at them.
Now we're going to be giving away 3 knot tying gift packs. Each pack will contain 8 feet of 8mm cord to practice your knots, a set of knot tying cards that you see all of us carrying, and a super nice black diamond locking carabiner. Now participating in the drawing is easy. In the comments section, just tell me the color of Tony's helmet, Jeff Williams' exploring helmet, and my helmet. The drawing entry cutoff is 1 week from when the video is released. Everyone who answers correctly will be entered into the drawing. 3 random winners will be selected.
So looking at things to tie up to, we have a very convenient 8x8 post, just like this one here, which is not going anywhere. I've got a long figure 8 and I've tied a clove hitch into the loop of the figure 8, so basically it can't come off, not that it will do anyway. It also means that you get 2 ropes around it as well, so just extra security. There's some nails on the back here and the rope is below those. Again, just I will probably put a backup off of this, just purely for the sake of it's there. This is, we know how long these are, that's in there a long way.
Yep.
We're not going to be pulling that out, and it is just a backup. Over the edge I'm going to put a rope protector on that timber, although the timber's going to be really, really soft anyway.
But can't hurt.
But we'll put a rope protector over that. Probably going to make use of this so the rope comes over here. Puts me dead centre of the haulage shaft. Far off. Which one goes where? What do these do?
Wow, that looks like an Alpine.
Hey, here it is.
Nice.
A nice little butterfly.
A butterfly, Alpine Butterfly. Can I have some more?
If this was the only point of connection, obviously that would be bigger, and I'll be putting 2 carabiners on, and you'd put, if you're using 2, you'd put them opposing, obviously closing the gates, just so any rubs anywhere, it might open one but it won't open the other one. But this is purely a backup, so one will be absolutely fine.
Backup plan number 1.
And
nice.
I want the load on that one. At the moment it's on here, so I've got to swap it over. Easiest way is to take slack out of the one that's tight, sorry, the one that's loose, and put it in the one that's tight.
Nice.
And there you go, all the weight's on that, and that knot will tighten up once I put my weight on it. and that is purely a backup.
Now, why did you use Alpine Butterfly?
Alpine, the reason I use the Alpine Butterfly is because the knot is automatically in a T shape, so the line of pull is straight through.
Got it. So all of this is straight through,
Yeah.
and nothing on that.
Yeah, nothing on that.
So technically,
you could cut that. And,
bingo.
Yep. You wouldn't. You could cut it and it'd be fine. If you're SRTing up, so you're doing that on the rope, it can wander through, in theory.
Okay.
So you don't want a loose end, but that is a nice one.
It's a dirty knot.
Yeah. See.
Now that's better.
Nice dressed knot. Look at that. Look. Oh,
Nice.
Always do that. You should be able to follow the two through, no problem at all. Anyway, so you can do this, but
Oh, that's no good.
yeah, it's fine, but you're putting a really tight strain on the knot, and it will be fine that way. But in this application, that's much better.
Yeah.
What's the extra knot for?
That's what we're going to be hooking the main rope on. I don't know how deep this is, so rather than sacrificing part of your rope that you might need, this 15-foot rope that we may need down the bottom, I use a separate rope to get us right to the edge, and then we use our climbing rope to go from here downwards, so we get maximum use out of the climbing rope.
So all you did was use the red rope for the anchor,
That's it.
and then the green rope is going to be the rappelling rope.
It's the dangly one.
So the green rope is 200.
165 now.
165.
It was 200.
Yeah, it's getting short all the time.
So
As happens
you could have
sometimes.
done all this with that,
Yep,
but you want to maximize length because it's an unknown.
yep.
Got it.
The other reason for doing it is that is still potentially a rub point. So if it
Right,
damages your
there's-
rope, we're going to lose 2.5, 3 foot of rope rather than.
Have to trim that
15
entire
foot.
piece up. That's brilliant.
Hence why that is now only 165, not 200.
That is
Yeah.
Just chopping the little bits off
Brilliant.
as we go. So just because I mentioned it earlier, I'm going to go for 2 carabiners.
one in, one out.
Yeah,
Figure 8.
good old figure 8.
You gonna do a single figure 8?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going down one rope, so one is absolutely fine. When I'm going to go back to one step back, so I'll show how I build these knots. So I build them so they're beautiful. You can follow 2 ropes all the way around. They don't twist over.
Right.
So it looks exactly like a figure 8. There's no way you can
No mistake.
accidentally turn that into something else.
Beautiful.
And then it's just the big ones go underneath. That one goes underneath,
And just dress it up.
pulls it up nice and tight. So yeah, there's no mistaking you've tied it correctly. Nice and neat, not even twisted up here. Beautiful stuff. I'm going to take
How much
it.
of a tail should you have?
It doesn't really matter. What I should do is put a barrel knot, which I probably
Right.
will do just to tie it off for safety. A figure 8, once it's around something, it's not going to undo itself, but you can't be too cautious. So,
Got it.
And as we've got enough rope, I can put a safety knot. Which I will do.
And of course, locking carabiners.
Locking carabines.
So these toe points, or recovery points, Tony's going to go ahead and rig onto the D-rings and go ahead and set up an anchor. I think the truck's probably heavy enough to hold us, but
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, probably so. Considering what else we like hang off of when we go do these explorers, this is probably the strongest anchor we ever have.
This is probably the only proper anchor we've ever had.
I know I've heard a lot of people say, oh, you should never use vehicles, but I disagree. They're big, they're heavy, they're solid.
3 tons of stuff that isn't going to move. Why would you not use it?
Yeah. So very simple, very straightforward. We don't get to do this very often because it's not very frequent. We can drive right up to a mine, but this one we can. And then what he's going to do is he's going to go straight over and build the anchor right there. He's gonna make it so it goes over the edge like he did me.
No, I'm going to do it away from the edge. I don't want to make Jeff have to struggle with it. So it's just a simple overhand knot. Considering what it's doing, you don't need to worry about a figure of 8 in there. It really isn't going to go anywhere. Doubled up as well.
New, not new. You can see the difference, right? So the big deal about that is that new ropes have a sheen or a gloss to them because of the oils from the manufacturer, just like anything. And of course, a used rope that has some wear to it doesn't. And you can definitely feel the difference between the two. Now, what you need to be careful of is when you're using a new rope for the first time, kind of like a gold pan, you got to break it in. So you got to be careful when you're ascending on this stuff, or descending I mean, because it's going to be slippery. So you got to keep that in mind when you're going down on these brand new ropes, because if you're not ready for it, you can go for a ride real fast.